Kamen Rider Black Sun is one of the many projects that Toei greenlit for the celebration of the Kamen Rider franchise. Black Sun is a reboot of the fan favorite season Kamen Rider Black. The show itself is a what-if story. It doesn't replace the original, but also you don't need to watch the original to understand any of the characters. A lot of characters in Black Sun do carry the same name as their original counterpart. They have completely different roles and completely different character developments. Like the group that produces the main villains of the show, Gorgam. In the original series, Gorgam was just a cold crime syndicate, but also participated in the creation of Black Sun and Shadow Moon. A lot of the original traits of Gorgam do stay in Black Sun, but the origins of Gorgam and its actual goal are different. But in Black Sun, Gorgam's origins is completely different. It started, first of all, as a kaijin right organization that in the course of the show transformed into a political party. At some point in the show, the Prime Minister of Japan takes control of it. But the goal of Black Sun's Gorgam and Black's Gorgam kind of stays the same, with finding a new Creation King. In the original Black, the Creation King is just getting old, and every 50,000 years there needs to be a new Creation King born, while in Black Sun, the Creation King is dying because they are extracting something from him that create food for the kaijin to not only regain their strength but also stay young for a long period of time. That extract from the Creation King is also combined with something else, and those two things combined they create something that's called heaven. The show tells its story between two time periods, the 70s and the 2020s. In the 70s, we learn about how Gorgam got their political powers and the reason for Nobuhiko's incarceration and why Kotoro left and was presumed dead for 50 years. But the main story is primarily told in the 2020s. How much Kotoro is the main protagonist and the title character of the show, the person that we spend the most time of is a new character that goes by the name of Iu. After I maybe got you slightly interested in the show, let me kind of give you a trigger warning. The show itself is not only as gory, but even more in some parts, like the last Amazon Prime series, Kamen Rider Amazons. But it speaks on more current and political right discussion, so it might be hard for some people to watch. Not only for the violent imagery, but also very real ones that happened not that long ago. This show shows its hand politically very hard. So if you're not comfortable in watching that because of the story they are telling, I suggest you not. But if you do, you are going to expect an amazing season coming up. Let's talk about our three main characters pretty much. Our eyes to this world is the 14-year-old kaijin activist Iu. The first time we see her, she is speaking in the UN about the conflict between the kaijin and humans, and a line she recites in her speech caught the attention of the Prime Minister of Japan that weirdly sent out the spider kaijin after her. But also Kotoro is after he got a case of a hit job on her. Both Kotoro and the spider kaijin appears, and when she gets knocked down, Kotoro appears that he's going to hit her, but he stops because of her necklace. Something about it makes him defend her. He brutally kills the spider kaijin and he takes her away to where he lives. Iu is our eyes to this world. It was a great idea because she comes in as a complete blank slate. She very much represents the too good to be true idealism, and when the season continues you see her ideals shattered and she starts entering the gray area more and more. But she isn't a perfect character. She has the tendency of young, smart female protagonists or just female characters in Toku to tend to believe everyone, and when she gets in trouble she needs Kotoro to save her. That's kind of one of my biggest problems with her character, but it slowly fades away as the character develops and continues to move more to the gray area than be pure white. I think one of the best things is the actress and the way they actually write the character she feels like a real character. She feels like a real teenager that doesn't really get the world that she's a part of. But I love that character because we see her transformation from this idealistic kaijin and humans can live together to no, the kaijins are always going to be second rate to the humans, and we just need to see how we can create that balance. And her interaction with Kotoro, how much it's very brief because or Kotoro is knocked out or she's been kidnapped by someone, is really great. You can see that Kotoro plays almost like this uncle character to her. How much she just, oh yeah, he's the mister that not only saved me, but also he kind of did kidnapped her. So I don't know what she thinks about that, but hey, it's fine. If now we talk about Kotoro, let's talk about the titled character of Kamen Rider Black Sun, aka Kotoro Minami. He's a broken man that just lives in the middle of nowhere. His characteristics are actually a lot more similar to how Kotoro was in Black RX. If I don't see it and it doesn't concern me, I would not fight anyone else's battles. Most of the money that he takes is or from hit jobs or from shaking up homeless people in Japan. And after meeting Io, he decides that he wants to protect her, and he decides that he would fulfill a promise that he made 50 years ago. Kotoro is genuinely my favorite character of the show. The way that they present him as this broken hero that understands that his final days are coming, so he would try to pass through as much lessons to Io as possible, probably before the inevitable comes, is really great. And he's the type of character that understands his goals has a great cost, but if he needs to fulfill his promise, he would fight for them. And his entire arc with Nobuhiko, a man that he used to once call some sort of a brother, that in the end drove a wedge between them that made them rivals, and how much they have the same goals, their paths are completely different. The actor that plays Kotoro does an amazing job, and you can clearly see how much the young version of Kotoro and the old version are still the same person, and how much their experience almost 50 years ago have changed them completely. I've already mentioned Nobuhiko, aka Kamen Rider Shadow Moon. Yes, in this universe, he is considered a rider, and that is practically because he's fighting for his own justice. So in the Ishinamori universe, he would still count as a rider. So yeah, for the last 50 years, he's being kept locked in a prison by Gorgam because of his act of betrayal on the agreement that the Gorgam party made with the former Prime Minister of Japan. But because of Kotoro's return, he gets to escape. He tries to patch things up with Kotoro and fulfill the same promise they made to a friend almost 50 years ago, but when he understands that Kotoro doesn't believe in the same way that he's thinking, Nobuhiko understands that he and Kotoro would fight for the right to be called the Creation King. Nobuhiko, as you can see, is a complete departure of the original Shadow Moon. While the original Shadow Moon was pretty much a brainless zombie being controlled by the Creation King and Gorgam, this Nobuhiko, he is fighting for his own justice. He hates the new Gorgam and the way they're being acted slightly as still secondary rate citizens next to the humans. Nobuhiko is my second favorite character, but to be honest, after a couple of more watches, he kind of slowly creeping away to be my favorite character of the show. And that is the complete character arc that we see, specifically when we start seeing him in the flashbacks in the 70 portions of the show, showing how much he changed from the wild manner guy that doesn't get angry often, that just want clear rights between humans and kaijin, to an angry man that understands that no matter what they would lose as kaijin all the time, to the ultimate change after failing his mission, with the sense of guilt consuming him, and with a loss of someone that he felt really close to, it gotten even worse. That made him change his goal overall. The actor of Nobuhiko is playing his character perfectly. I genuinely from time to time agreed way more with Nobuhiko than Kotoro, but I can see there is this extremist view that he believes that in one point kaijin should be slightly above human. He represents the mentality of the people that are actually broken. Not guys like Kotoro, but guys like Nobuhiko. While Nobuhiko is broken spiritually, Kotoro is more broken physically. There's a lot of characters that don't really need full paragraphs like I did for our 3 mains. So let's talk about the other ones. We have one of the only other humans in the Gorgon party. Oliver Johnson is a man that joined the Gorgon movement because he understands how the kaijin feels like being a man of color. That character was genuinely one of the funnest characters to watch, and you can clearly see the political rights issues with him being a man of color. And the actor has done an amazing job being this lovable, goofy character that can be serious. And more props to him being bilingual. He can speak fluently in Japanese and in English. That actor is probably really smart. There is Yukari, the only other human that joined the Gorgon movement, that plays way more of a love interest between Kotoro and Nobuhiko, but she might be hiding something from everyone. She has kind of a problem with me, and that is the idea that she kind of plays with Nobuhiko and Kotoro's dicks a lot, and I just don't find it very believable, because really, like, Kotoro and Nobuhiko just like, okay, they would get each other's sloppy second, like, if you want to, fine, but kind of weird, champ, kind of weird, son, but yeah, okay. There is Nick, Io's friend. He's pretty much Io's man on the street that gives her information not only about Gorgon but also somehow about Kotoro from time to time. He maybe is also hiding something from Io to benefit his own agenda. He was a fine character. I didn't really see a big old problem with him. He was kind of annoying, but in the end of the show he kind of really grew on me. And there is kind of a big twist that if you already seen how Nick looks like, and you would see one of the other characters that I already talked about, and you understand there is a connection, and I'm not going to tell you what, but it's pretty damn obvious that he has a familial connection to one of the characters. There is Shunsuke, Io's kaijin friend, that Io pushes him to be more and more comfortable with him being a kaijin, and he also become a part of a team that Nobuhiko creates. He's a fine character. He represents the other side of the conflict of, hey, I'm a kaijin, I would just be okay with being second grade and just kind of keep it low. But we do see his growth through the season. If we're already continuing on the kaijin route, let's talk about Naomi and Kujira, two kaijin that once worked for Gorgon. Naomi as just a scientist, but Kujira as a scientist and a hitman. Both of them are great characters. Two people that were oppressed by Gorgon, but slowly and slowly understand that maybe Gorgon is the problem with the kaijins, and it's not just the humans. They were great side characters. I do really enjoyed them, and I like that how much Kujira is very much a reference to a character that was in Kamen Rider Black. And then there is Kumori, the bad kaijin, that kind of falls in the middle between the Kotoro party and the Gorgon party. It's kind of interesting that he actually built the Gorgon party, but he was too shy and too insecure to actually speak in public. He's an actual decent, kind man that tries to help both sides, but he understands that in one point he needs to choose one. His character was great. I love the change between Kumori and the Bat Mutant. In Black, the Bat Mutant was just pure evil, while Kumori falls in between. And on Kumori's part, he's actually a nice dude that has actually fun interaction specifically with Kotoro's party. Now let's talk about the Gorgon party. And here lies the biggest problem with the show. The Gorgon party was mainly very much two-dimensional. They weren't that interesting. And the tagline of the show was who's evil and what's evil. But the biggest problem, all of the Gorgon party, except for a couple of people, are just two-dimensional, snarkling evil villains. None of them had real development. None of them really had character moments that I would actually remember if I would watch the show just once. Let's talk about the 3 Gorgon priests. In the original show, they had a lot more to do, specifically with creating new mutants to fight Black Sun. In Black Sun, They mostly just sit in a room and drinking or just talking to someone, and that's it. They don't really have a lot of action scenes, and if they do, they're extremely short. Let's talk about Daramu. Being the oldest out of the three priests, he has one interesting little brief conversation with Kotoro in episode 6, but that's it. And this is kind of a continuing theme with the three priests. They done nothing, basically nothing, not only in the 2020s story, but also in the 70s story. They barely had any really full-on screen time. Doromu, in my opinion, could have been a really interesting character because out of the three priests, he's the only one that didn't take heaven. So he actually grows older. So like they could have continued and tell the story why he stopped taking heaven. But yeah, like he didn't really do anything. He was the person that kind of came in and pledged allegiance to the prime minister, and he's the man that kind of negotiated the entire thing between the Gorgon party and the prime minister of Japan, but that's it. He barely done anything, and this is a reoccurring thing that I'm going to say about the three priests. So yeah, I don't know what to say more about Doromu. He barely done anything. He could have done more. They could have given him slightly more, but yeah, he was an interesting villain that had a really great brief conversation with Kotoro. So yeah, now let's talk about Bishimu. She did have an interesting little beginning to her character. When they were hiring a hitman for Kotoro, Kaijin proposed that if she would get the King Stone and take out Kotoro, she would get Bishimu's position, and Bishimu was actually fine with it. So maybe she believed that her role is kind of useless, and if someone is strong enough to defeat Black Sun, she has the right to take her position. But that's pretty much it. She stood around and did nothing for the rest of the season. She started to have a thing with Nobuhiko, but the problem was it was around like episode 8 or episode 7, and it just was too damn late for me to care about it. I'm sorry, it's I think one of the biggest problems in the show. I'm going to repeat it. It's the villains. Or Baramo, he barely done anything. Literally, like the first episode we see him, they do say that he's the strongest priest out of the three priests. They do mention that he is really strong, and he did nothing. He actually, from the three, did absolutely nothing. He had a small little moment in the 70s portion. He was the man that caught Nobuhiko, and because of him, he got into prison. But that's it. He has something closer to the end of the series that didn't serve him as anything, but he's barely a fucking character, to be completely honest. Now let's talk about Shinichi Donami. He's the current prime minister, and he pretty much took over the role from his grandfather as prime minister. He continued his involvement with Gorgam, but the problem is, and it's not really a problem, again, it's way more the problem with the tagline of who and what's really evil. He's just pure evil. Straight up, he doesn't care about kaijin. He doesn't care about humans even. He's the symbol of politician bad, and I get it. Politicians, not great people in my opinion. They're liars, they're everything they are telling, but he is actually a fucking cartoon. I actually really enjoy the actor. From what I understand, he was a roid mute in Kamen Rider Drive, if I can remember correctly, and one of his staff members is the terror dopant. It's funny, I don't know, but he has no redeeming quality. If we look at his grandfather, at least from the little bit we see of him, he cared about the kaijins as way more of a voting regiment than anything else. Donami doesn't care. He sells kaijin in auctions. He doesn't care about them. He doesn't care about humans. He's actually a piece of shit. I understand that you need a bad guy, but like that kind of comes into a very comical rate of oh my god, how big of a piece of shit you're trying to make. Now let's talk about Birgeria. From all of the villains of the show, he actually does get an arc. He sees Gorgon and the Creation King as some sort of something to worship. He sees specifically the Creation King as something sacred. And when the deal was made with the original Prime Minister, he was actually in the front line of the opposition against the entire thing. And that was actually something really interesting that I never thought we're going to see, because this is very much closer to how Gorgon used to be in Kamen Rider Black. But when he was captured alongside with Nobuhiko, he slowly just became a broken man. And when the new Prime Minister arrives, he comes with a proposition. Come be his lapdog pretty much, and you can get your freedom. And Nobuhiko straight up refused, but Birgenia decided straight up, okay, I would take the job and I would bite my own tongue. And he pretty much became the Prime Minister's lapdog. He was actually as evil as Prime Minister, and he becomes slowly as irredeemable as the Prime Minister was. But as the show slowly progresses, and that's kind of the problem, it for him at least progressed very slowly, he understands that maybe he was on the wrong side. The biggest problem with Berigeria's entire character arc, it was too slow, and when it comes to the big crescendo of the arc, I kind of stopped caring. And it's like, okay, you were evil for pretty much the entire show, but now you're a good guy. Okay, I don't really see that. Again, he was the only developed villain in the show, and they took a long ass time to actually see what's the problem with him, and that was the biggest problem. But I get it, it's very show era to have just two-dimensional villains that have no redeeming cause to them. But when you actually do a character arc that one of the villains understand the errors of their way, at least do it good. This is an edit. I genuinely forgot about the anti-kaijin party. I don't have a lot to say. They're pieces of shit, don't have any redeeming qualities, kind of continues the problem with the villains of the show being very two-dimensional. And the anti-kaijin party are just pure evil. They're as evil as the Prime Minister. To be completely honest, they are becoming slowly just a cardboard cutout of a villain. Very cartoony and very not realistic to at least what the world is. But yeah, most of the characters in the show were really great. Even the villains, how much I really did complain about them being two-dimensional, I really enjoyed seeing them. So yeah, let's talk about the other stuff kind of surrounding the show. Let's talk about the music of the show. I absolutely love the OST of Black Sun. I am re-listening to that OST. Even now, I am actually listening to it. From the themes for both Kotoro and Nobuhiko and Black and Shadow Moon, it works. And it's so great. And the instrumentation is beautiful. And the opening is absolutely amazing. Oh my god, the opening, not Did You See the Sunrise, how much that was also a really great song, but the opening is amazing. But also, Did You See the Sunrise is, in my opinion, the best song in Reiwa era Kamen Rider ever. I don't care about Saber, I don't care about Trustless, I don't care about Live Devil. This is the best song in Reiwa era. Mark my words, we are still going to talk about Did You See the Sunrise until the Reiwa era ends. From audio, let's talk visuals. Every suit in Black Sun is incredible. Both the kaijin forms for Black Sun and Shadow Moon are absolutely fantastic looking, and I didn't expect to see those suits actually a lot more than the Rider suits, if I would give a slight spoiler warning to that. But yeah, and when they upgrade to the Rider suits, how much I disliked Shadow Moon for a little bit, in motion Shadow Moon looks absolutely incredible, and Black Sun is probably how Shotaro Ishinomori would design a Kamen Rider today. I absolutely love their drivers and how the mechanics work. I am still baffled how the hell they're going to release that toy, because the way they transform and all the moving parts of that transformation device is so damn cool. Seeing the simplicity of the Typhoon that Ichigo used, at least the toy version, and then kind of the continuation of the Vital Charger that somehow had TV technology that I still don't get. This is weird 80s far-fetched technology, to the Oracle that Kuga used, to the Demon's Driver in Revice, now to Century King Sun Driver, is absolutely incredible. All of the moving parts. It's pretty much the look to the futures of the driver system that probably we're going to get in maybe 5, maybe 6 years from now in the actual main series. But now let's continue to the kaijin. Most of the kaijin we see are fucking cool looking, and all of them have cool and interesting little details. And in my opinion, Kujira and the Bad Kaijin having their flesh around them and little pieces of their body still showing up is really cool. Now let's talk about the Creation King and how much I don't care. Bandai release a Creation King statue, because in my opinion he is the best looking suit in the entire series, and I think the biggest point for why he's the coolest suit in the entire series, it's his stature. He is so big and it's a practical suit. Like, I'm kind of forgetting saying that all of the suits were actual suits. There weren't a lot of CGI in playing, but when it was used correctly. But seeing the Creation King, and you can kind of see his transformation from his origins to when Kotoro and Nobuhiko were kids, to where they became adults and a part of the Gogram party, to now being this ginormous bugman that just doesn't do really anything except raising his hand and just throwing fuckers. He doesn't care. This is his last moments, and having this ginormous present shows the reason why guys like Bergenia looked at the Creation King as a god. It's absolutely magnificent. From the suits, let's talk about cinematography. I think the cinematography in this season is absolute top notch. There are shots that I still remember in my head, and the little details of changing the filters when we switch time period is great. And I'm so happy to say that we didn't get the drab color grading of Kamen Rider Amazons. Oh boy, that was bad. Before I finish at least my spoiler-free review, I want to say how much I really do like. It still pays a lot of respect to the original shows with really great Easter eggs. Like in the auction scenes, there are pictures of the kaijins, and the pictures of the kaijins in the kaijins form is actually the mutants from Black. And that is actually a really cool little detail that probably a lot of people don't talk about. And the transformation scenes for Kotoro is 1-to-1 just a recreation of the original one from Black. And that is so cool. Like, it's the small little details that this show shows so much respect to the original style, how much they're changing the story overall. So now let's talk about my final thoughts. I think this show is absolutely fantastic. How much I feel that there is a little off balance in character development, specifically in the villain camps, and from time to time the show is very hand-fisted with its political ideas and taking some imageries from the real world. It's still really great, and I still believe that this show is going to be talked about for years. And the way they end it shows that we're not going to get a season 2, and I'm happy about it. I've seen Amazon season 2, I didn't like it, but it doesn't matter how much the small little portion of problems that I have with the show. I still believe this show is absolutely gripping and fantastic, and everybody should watch it. If I could give it a score, it will be a solid 9 out of 10, guys. So yeah, before I go to my spoiler section, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you watched Black Sun, tell me what you thought about it, and like, subscribe down below. So if you want to enter in the spoiler talk, continue with the video, and if you don't, have a great rest of your day and watch Black Sun if you want to. Have a nice day. Now let's talk about spoilers. Yukari was actually an agent sent by Nobuhiko's dad to steal the Kingstone from Gorgam. She was kind of successful at it until Belegia kind of killed her, but Oliver Johnson did take the stones for himself. But later in the future, he gave one of the stones to Yu's parents, and the Kingstone is the necklace that he was wearing. And the other Kingstone was in the possession of Oliver Johnson, but Donami took it from him after forcing his son, Nick. Shock or shock, they had two character of colors in the show, and one is the son of the other. Oh boy, made him watch Birgenia beat the living shit out of Oliver Johnson's last words was the sentence that Yukari used to say, and after that was passed down to Yu. The biggest change between Black and Black Sun, and that is Nobuhiko's dad is still alive, and he was actually a part of the transformation of Nobuhiko and Kotoro. And the reason they put the Kingstone in Nobuhiko and Kotoro is for them to actually kill the Creation King or make a new one. Both of the writers' dad were also a part of the creation of the first kaijin ever that was created in 1942. They created the first kaijin to fight in World War II. The first kaijin was later renamed the Creation King. Heaven is not only made by the Creation King extract, but also by humans that just thrown away to the slaughter. The elderly, people a part of the LGBTQ community, homeless people, all of them are just there to be killed or be transformed into kaijins that are just going to be auctioned off. The last couple of episodes, specifically 9 and 10, draws a lot of comparison from episode 49 of the original Black, from Black being defeated to the whale mutant or whale kaijin coming in and reviving Black Sun in a cave. And actually when Black Sun was revived, Yu drew the same emblem that the original Black Sun had. How much this one doesn't really make fully a lot of sense, because Black Sun or Kamen Rider Black, his symbol that was on his chest was supposed to represent the Gorgam logo, because Gorgam was a snake, but now Gorgam is an infinity symbol. I don't know, but I was fine with that. And episode 10 had, in my opinion, the biggest surprise ever, where they just opened up with just recreating the original opening with the original song. This was absolutely incredible. I loved every second of that. I don't care. And the ride to the opening kind of made sense because Kotoro was actually riding towards the Gorgam party building to have his final fight with Nobuhiko. That was absolutely incredible and violent, and still had a lot more connection, a little Easter egg to Nobuhiko's and Kotoro's final fight, like Nobuhiko stabbing Kotoro, believing that he's dead, but Kotoro's heart is too strong and he still keeps going until one solitary rider punch and rider kick that felt so damn impactful, and the final moments with Nobuhiko were so powerful. Nobuhiko was just reminiscing on the old times they were together and all the people they lost and all the people they really cared about. They're now gone. It was a sad moment. And the new Creation King is Kotoro, the man that actually killed the Creation King a couple of episodes before. I would not really say killed because his heart was still beating, because he took his heart from his chest, but it also doesn't really make any sense. But I really like the reference to how the original Creation King used to look like. But yeah, Kotoro is the new Creation King, and he has an incredible looking suit that we barely see. Burgenia's last moment were actually defending Yu from a police SWAT that was sent by the Prime Minister because Io was just stating that the kaijins were made in Japan for World War II and she was a kaijin. But Genia's last moments is defending Io, a person that he used to hate, and made her dad turn into a kaijin and laugh hysterically when he was in pain and killed her mom in front of her, and now he's kind of a good guy. I'm not really sure about that, but fine. And actually one of the coolest little details that I actually didn't talk about because I didn't know if it was considered a spoiler, how much it's a part of the lore of the original show. He was carrying the Satan Saber pretty much from the first episode of the show, and it's actually really cool. And he takes the sword from him to kill the new creation king, Kotoro, and they recreate a really cool little moment they had in the show of Kotoro teaching her self-defense, and it was pretty beautiful, and I almost cried. But I didn't. It did not make me cry. Shut up. And before she comes in to kill him, she somehow grows a transformation belt. I don't really sure about that fully, but yeah, she kills him. And a couple of months later, she just creates a new group like Nobuhiko did. It didn't really work for him, so why the fuck it would work for her? I don't know. But yeah, this is the small little spoiler section that I really want to talk about. I don't want to explain more. I don't want to talk about more. It's genuinely a good show. And I love each and every single part of every character. So yeah, thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel. Have a great rest of your day.